2014. He has been giving private English, French, and Turkish lessons to foreigners for 23 years. Tonight he will make his 19th speech. The speech is from the Advanced Professional Speaker Manual titled Impact of Repeated Thoughts on Success and Failure. Rasih Bensan.
Can you switch before the timer starts? Yes.
Maybe you can.
Okay. Does positive thinking increase our chance of success? And if it does, can anybody learn to think positively and increase his or her chance of success? Does negative thinking increase the likelihood of failure? Is there any scientific evidence, any scientific explanation of this? Or is it just some kind of self-help nonsense? To answer these questions, let's take a look at what the science of neuropsychology says about what is happening in our brain and in our mind when we repeat negative or positive thoughts again, again, and again. Our brain has 100 billion neurons. That is nerve cells. There are other kinds of cells in our brain as well, but neurons are special types of cells that communicate with each other, that talk to each other. And why? In order to perform many mental and physical functions in our body and mind, like digestion, heartbeat, breathing, thinking, learning, emotions, developing habits and skills. And how do these 100 billion neurons talk to each other? How do they communicate? They communicate by firing chemical substances called neurotransmitters to each other. Neurotransmitters, there are 100 neurotransmitters that have been discovered. Each one has different functions, mental and physical. But how do the neurons, the 100 billion neurons, communicate with each other? For this, let's take a look at the diagram. This is a diagram of a typical neuron in our brain communicating with another neuron. Between the two neurons, there is a very tiny space, 1 in 10 millionth of a centimeter, that is called a synaptic gap or synaptic cleft. When you think a thought using electromagnetic energy, the neuron fires a neurotransmitter that carries your thought. This neurotransmitter falls into this gap and passes on to the other neuron. Some of these neurotransmitters are called dopamine, serotonin, GABA, epinephrine, norepinephrine. But we will only concentrate on the neurons and the neurotransmitters that are specialized in thinking. This process is repeated over and over again between billions of neurons in our brain. And as a result, there is a gigantic network of neurons communicating with each other. When you repeat the thought, the same thought, again and again, the same kind of neurotransmitter is fired and creates a synaptic link with the other neuron that's receiving the neurotransmitter. When you repeat the same thought over and over again, the synaptic link gets stronger and stronger, just like our muscles get stronger when we repeat the same exercise. And this means that the thought and the belief get stronger as well. If the thought that you repeat over and over again is, "Oh, I just can't learn English. I can't improve my English. I don't have the ability to learn English from birth. I try so hard, I work so hard. I hired so many teachers, I paid so much money, but I just can't learn English, I don't have the ability. If you repeat this thought, the neurotransmitter that is fired will be carrying this belief, this thought, and it will be forming the synaptic link that tells you that you don't have the capability of learning English. Every neuron in our brain can connect a synaptic link with 10,000 other neurons. Times 100 million neurons, that makes 100 trillion synaptic links, a gigantic World Wide Web in our brain that is greater than the whole World Wide Web network. On the contrary, if you repeat the positive thought that you can learn English, you strengthen the thought that you can learn English. You see, what you are doing when you repeat those thoughts and form those synaptic links is you are writing the software that runs your brain. Just like in a computer, the hardware does what the software tells it to do, cannot do anything else. Our brain, our hardware, can only do what our mind tells it to do, and our mind is a software. And who writes the software? That is our mind. We write it by the thoughts that we repeat again and again and again. What we think becomes reality. The capacity or incapacity is not from birth. You make yourself believe it by repeating it again and again. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you cannot learn English, you're right. If you think you can learn English, you're right. Whatever you think, you're right. Because you create your own reality by repeating the thoughts, firing the neurotransmitters, and forming the synaptic links. The answer to the question, does positive thinking increase the chances of success? Does negative thinking increase the chances of failure? And can anybody learn positive thinking? And is there a scientific explanation, proof of this? The answer to all of these questions is yes. And this is the scientific explanation. Now, if you, in 5 to 7 minutes, I can only give you such a short overview, but if you are interested in this subject, and if you want to see evidence that positive thinking does in fact increase our chance of success, I recommend the book by Dr. Robert Winston, The Human Mind and How to Make the Most of it. And also, you can research on the internet under the names of neuroplasticity of the brain, synaptic ties, and neural networks. And you will see a much more detailed presentation than the presentation I made you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasih. So can we have a 1 minute break?